Well, hello there, and I do hope you're all well. Now we're in for a bit of a belter today, because, yes, that age-old word, political correctness. Whenever I hear somebody use that old buzzword, I usually roll my eyes, switch off, and think, yeah, the absolute complete, I'm listening to a complete and utter buffoon. Well, on Wednesday, I was listening to James O'Brien's show, and he was asking people ringing who were mainly from the red wall seats, asking how do they feel now that these people who said for your life to get better, you have to vote for Bodger Johnson. They are now the same sort of people saying that this guy is useless, he is not fit for purpose, and should be got rid of about 2.5 years later, is it something like that? Well, they got a call from a guy called John, who started off sounding sane enough, because he said the reason why people in the red wall seats voted Boris Johnson because it was either him or Jeremy Corbyn, and they didn't want to vote for Jeremy Corbyn. Now we could go into the ins and outs of why that was, whether it was the fresh right-wing media and this and that, but my thought process on that is, if you're not going to play the game, don't get upset when your opponents fill the void you refuse to join in. But that's by the by, innit? Well, then he went off on a strange tangent about political correctness, and I'll tell you the reason after we've gone about this phone call, why I think what this call took my fancy, and I'll tell you the reason why after. But enjoy.
John's in Formby. John, what would you like to say?
Yes, I think a lot of the Red Wall situation was to do with keeping Corbyn out.
Do you?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I think in a lot of elections, it's not a question of who's a great candidate. It's a question of who's the lesser of two evils.
And Corbyn's ability to alienate huge swathes of traditionally Labour voting populations was legendary.
Yes. Well, I think there's another factor which isn't discussed enough, but which I know a lot about living in the north.
Yes.
Is the hatred of the political correctness which is forced down people's throats.
Give me your best example, John.
Well, I could give you loads.
Yeah, go on then. Just give me your best. Give me your best.
A school trip from a school in Bradford to the Slavery Museum in Liverpool.
Yes.
And the white pupils who wanted to go were not allowed to go.
See, I'm 99% certain that's not true.
Well, I'm afraid you let your bigotry get the better of you.
No, 99%.
I've spoken to several of these pupils.
OK. What was the school called?
I can name it.
Yes, go on.
Yeah, it was Buttershaw, and the headmistress was Mrs. Hedge.
And you voted in the general election because of a school trip from a school in Bradford?
In part, yes.
OK. Shall we say that again out loud? You cast your vote in the general election because of a story about a school trip from a school in Bradford.
There are many others.
Which politician do you think was most responsible for that?
To ban bacon from a multicultural day centre.
Yes, and well, I suppose I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and genuinely believe that a plan to ban bacon from a multicultural day centre that you don't attend influenced your voting decisions.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, no, I mean, clearly. Just tell me why. Why?
I mean, because I don't like it.
No, but if you went there, and we're talking about tyranny in the context of bacon now, John, so I'll just give you a moment to reflect upon the ridiculousness of that. But if you went to the day centre and you were being deprived of bacon, I could almost understand how that might influence your choice of MP in a general election. But you don't go to the day centre. Did you even live in the relevant constituency?
No.
So they stopped serving bacon in a day centre you never visit, in a constituency you don't live in, and that influenced your choice of MP in a general election?
I am my brother's keeper, and I don't approve.
Well, I'm not interested in your brother. I'm interested in you.
Rotherham and 100 other places either.
And which national MPs bear responsibility for that?
They all do.
All of them. So Conservative, Labour, Liberal, Democrat, all of them.
All those who knew it was going on and did nothing about it.
Well, that's libelous, isn't it? Because that would entail actual conscious knowledge of something and looking the other way. So everything you've said, in answer to the question of why did people vote for Boris Johnson, falls apart at that little point where I say the words Boris Johnson.
No, it doesn't.
It does? So you voted for Boris Johnson because they stopped serving bacon in a community centre you've never visited in a constituency you don't live in?
Well, an area which someone said on the media that you should visit and live in and find out how things really are, because in your London bubble you haven't a clue.
But, mate, you don't live in the constituency. You're in a bacon bubble. You're in a bacon bubble.
In
and for the record, John, for the record, mate, I was born in Doncaster.
Here's another one. Use of the public library.
Yes.
At Farsley, it has a toilet.
Yes.
If you are a man and want to use the toilet, you are made to feel very, very uncomfortable, where women are let in without let or hindrance.
Right. How do they make you...
It's all part of the rotten culture that is imposed upon us.
How do they make you feel How do they make you feel uncomfortable when you go to the lavatory? How do they make you feel uncomfortable?
And you
John, please.
don't understand how wrong it is and how hated it is.
John, I understand perfectly.
Look at these stories and find out that a lot of them are true.
John, I've written a book about these stories, but I'm more interested in what makes you feel uncomfortable at the lavatory in Farsley Library.
Well, if I read the literature of the Farsley Library...
please don't tell me you haven't. You've been to the lavatory in Farsley Library.
There is an accessible toilet.
You've been there, though.
And when I go to use it...
Yes.
I am told it is only for emergencies.
Yes.
But they'll let me use it just as a one-off. And then a woman comes up 20 minutes later, can I use the toilet?
Yes.
Because you can, love.
So your choice of political party in the last general election is influenced by the accessibility of the lavatory in Farsley Library, the availability of bacon, the availability of bacon in a community centre you've never visited, and an almost certainly apocryphal story about a school trip from a school in Bradford that you neither attend nor live in the relevant constituency. Have I got that right?
Listen,
I have. It's 10:30. Holly Harris is here with the headlines.
Now, when it came to this phone call, I thought I might do this for Thursday, but then I thought, no, it's what you call it, it's PMQs. I thought, no, I might do it as a treat for Friday. And in a way, I'm glad I did, because for two reasons. One, I wanted, because it's quite hilariously funny, people still use the word political correctness. And secondly, I knew straight away that when he mentioned about political correctness and he asked for examples, and when he mentioned the school, I knew he was talking out of his arse. My wife is a Buttershaw lass. She went to the school. Her brothers and sisters went to the school. And one of my relations also went to the school. And nobody's ever mentioned that story. I've lived on Buttershaw myself for a time. Never heard of that story. So I knew it was absolute bollocks. But anyway, I'm glad I did, because in the second bit, there is a bit of a comeback with James, because he was having a conversation with the last call, Claire, I think she was from Plymouth, and having a conversation about the latest scandal. I think it's about the blackmailing. And I'm not going to go through the whole call. I'll go to the end where our dear John got another mention. Rather interesting. But not just that, I left the phone call on after, because I thought this call, I could feel his emotion for it, because the lad's a lifelong Conservative voter, and when you see that the party that you've been voting for a long time don't have any clothes, and it's there for you to see and you realise it, I feel sorry for the guy. But it's a really, really fantastic call. Enjoy.
Carol Cadwallader, who's fighting a very important court case this week, about which we can't say much, but we're keeping a very close eye on, and our thoughts are very much with Carol. But she launched her entire post-Brexit crusade after realising what people in her hometown in Wales had been told about EU funding, and she could not believe that in a functioning democracy with a free press, this absolute nonsense was being injected into their streams every day, into their news streams every day. So I probably obsess too much about newspapers when people like our correspondent there and the friends that you've seen on Facebook are actually getting... And the fella on earlier in the week talking about Farsley Library, I don't know if you heard that, and the community centre that had banned bacon. We spoke to the school. Guess what? That school trip to the Slavery Museum, guess what? Never happened. Absolute nonsense. Absolute hogwash. So he almost certainly got that off Facebook because he wouldn't have got it from any vaguely reputable news organisation.
Well, I just hope that he has that he's finding his accessible toilets okay.
Yes, well, we all hope he finds the accessible toilets all right. Twitter being Twitter, and me having no way of checking it, someone claimed that they had actually been on a recce to Farsley Library as a man and had sought access to said toilet and made their way in and out completely unmolested. So if you're listening, John in Formby, the school trip never happened. If you really were made to feel uncomfortable on your way in and out of the lavatory, it had nothing to do with political correctness and was entirely personal. It must have been something about you that made people treat you in that way. And as for the community centre that you've never visited in a constituency that you don't vote in, banning bacon, supposedly, I think you probably need to look at whether or not it was budgetary. Because if Jews and Muslims and vegetarians can't eat bacon and the community centre is trying to save money by offering up only one option a day, or 2 options a day instead of 3 or 4, you can see why foodstuffs that are anathema for some people might be at the top of the list of things to remove. On the other hand, it might be political correctness gone mad, because you can't say what you want in this country about immigration anymore without being arrested. Which reminds me, my full disclosure interview with the inimitable Stuart Lee is currently available wherever you download your podcasts, including the LBC website and Global Player app. Thank you, Claire. Jeremy's in Southampton. Jeremy, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome.
I watched yesterday as the MP crossed the floor of the House of Commons.
Yeah.
And as a young guy who's always been a member of the Tory party, always voted Tory, voted for Brexit, as much as I regretted it afterwards, I crossed the floor with him.
Really? Really?
I spoke to my dad this morning.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't think I can ever see myself voting for the Tory party again.
Wow.
And it's painful. It's painful to watch as the country I love, the country I'm going to grow up in, the country I'm going to raise my children in, is reduced to this sort of moral corruption that we used to look at other countries and feel some sort of sense of superiority. It couldn't happen here. But it's happening here.
Yeah.
We looked at the contracts for PPE and the nepotism that went on there. And we thought, okay, you know what? Crisis time, maybe this is the worst it can get. But
and maybe there is an excuse there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it did make some sort of sense in the short term with everything being so urgent and immediate to stick with the devil you know instead of throwing it out to tender to people who you didn't know. And if you so the investigation into Baroness, all these people who've been put in the House of Lords, Michelle Mone, the investigation into her is very interesting. Some of the detail in that story is well worth looking at. Again, I'm always slightly wary of the legals, but if you want to dig into that yourself, it will fulfil some of your fears, I think, potentially. What do you do then? Do you cross to the Labour Party? I mean, because Keir Starmer, I suggested earlier, is beginning to look like the perfect person to be in charge of the Labour Party, in that he's not going to spook people like you.
I would welcome boring and stable.
Yeah.
Over this ridiculous farce of a government that we have at the moment. And the most difficult realisation for me, the most painful one, was looking back. The emperor was naked all along.
Yeah.
That from we bought the lies of the Brexit, the pro-Brexit group.
Yes.
We believed in them. We forgave them that they were wrong because it was a new situation. We forgave them when it was this nepotistic contract awarding. We overlooked all that, but how much lower can we sink? This is a country I'm so deeply proud of.
Yeah.
And we're better than this.
We are.
We should be better than this. It's like a punch to the gut.
I feel for you, even though obviously we sing from rather different hymn sheets historically. I feel.
I think that we are all one thing, and that's all. We're all citizens of this country. We all have to live here together.
Yeah.
Whatever our political views, the fact that they take us for such idiots, the fact that they have such disdain for us, that they lie so blatantly to us, that the British people are not stupid. And I really hope that people start to realise that we are better than this. We can do better than this. This shouldn't be what we have to settle for.
Beautifully put, if you'll allow me to say so, Jeremy, and thank you. Actually, that I know a lot of people have found comfort, regardless of how much despair you might be feeling. People would have found comfort in your words, and it's hard to pick a favourite bit. People are pointing out, well, how can we be surprised by bullying when Priti Patel was busted for bullying? Boris Johnson let it slide, threw away the report, and the bloke who'd written it resigned in disgust. And what did you do? You looked the other way, I guess. Not Jeremy personally, but the evidence is not new. And for me, oddly, it's a tiny, tiny little thing. And it is symptomatic of the media organisation that has done more to bring about the disaster and the disgrace that Jeremy describes. The Daily Mail today essentially printing on paper a squabble over whether or not one of these ludicrous MPs has got a booze fridge in her office or not. And the people who write those stories, I presume that they are, some of them must be as disgusted as we are about what's been done to this country, but they, of course, are in the process of doing it.
You could hear the pain in his voice, couldn't you? Now I'm going to be brief as much as I can, because I don't want this to go on much longer, because anyway, you've got your weekends to look forward to. But you could hear the pain and anger in his voice. And he wasn't the only one. I've got another video of the caller after him saying, and he was a ex-Conservative councillor, and I've heard this from a load of stuff all week. I think the Conservative Party are in a real spot of bother. It's like, clearly they don't know whether to stick or twist, because if they had anybody to replace Al Bodge now, it'd have been gone, wouldn't they? So, but oh wow, that was a powerful call, though, wasn't it? I felt so sorry for the guy. Yeah, I might not politically agree with him on a lot of things, but I can pretty much guarantee we could sit down for a coffee, and we might basically want to meet the same destination, but might have different routes to go to it. That's how politics is, I suppose. But I can see the Conservatives are in a spot of bother. But anyway, I shall leave the video here, because I've gassed on long enough. So have a wonderful weekend and take care.